Hello there. My name's Joe, and as an extra credit project to help my horrible test I just took, we had to do a video of the 12 steps of animation. This is for my 3ds Max animation class, and basically I'm just going to be going over the 12 principles of animation. You can see them listed there. It's going to... no, wrong finger. See them there? And I'm just going to go over them one by one, give you a little visual, try to explain it as best as I can, and hopefully that helps my piss poor test grade. So, strap in, hold on, and let's rock. Okay, so step one of the principles of animation is going to be squash and stretch. Basically, it's the flexibility of an object, the elasticity of an object, whichever word you prefer. For the visual representation, I'm going to use Mr. Ballface here. And basically, if you drop something like Mr. Ballface, he's going to come down, he's going to squash, and then he's going to stretch back up to normalcy and keep going and keep bouncing, because he's a bouncing happy face. And that's the first step, squash and stretch. Okay, so Blake's going to help me out with step 2 of the principles of animation, which is anticipation. Not this anticipation. Blake, you want a cookie? Yeah? Who's that? You see Doggy? Yeah, see? He's freaking out because he wants a treat and he wants to see the dogs. Not that type of anticipation. Anticipation in animation is basically the preview event before the main motion takes place. So a good example of that is going to be... there you go, Blake. A good example of that is going to be Superman, and how he gets ready to fly. He'll usually do, like, the launch off, and then he's going to fly up into the air and zoom away. So yeah, that's anticipation. Superman launching off and then flying to save the world. Superman sucks, Batman's better. Just putting that out there. And there you go. That's step 2. Okay, so step 3 is going to be staging, which is basically presenting the camera angle, the direction of viewing to show the event happening, the animation that you're working on. Like step 2, when I was doing the Superman pose, to get a better understanding of that scene, you'd probably want a camera angle more like that, where you're viewing it from a downward angled trajectory so that you can see everything, and then him lifting off, and then it moving like that so that you can see him go into the air. And yeah, so that's mostly staging, is preparation of viewing what's happening. Okay, so step 4 of the 12 principles is a 2-parter. The first part is straight ahead action animation, where you basically animate from the very beginning all the way to the very end, and you just do every single one until you get to the end. For a quick example, we're going to do a coin across the knuckles. There we go. Drop the coin. Okay, so part 2 of step 4 is going to be pose to pose, and that refers to how animators will create an animation using signature key poses. For instance, you have a guy walk up to a chair. This is the first pose. Second pose would be this. Third pose would be this. Fourth pose would be this. Fifth pose would be this. And then sixth pose would be that. So yeah, basically that's pose to pose. And in the very beginning of that pose, it could have gone any way. It could have been him moving the chair. It could have been him giving the chair to somebody else. He could have done many different things with the chair. But by going pose to pose, you're showing The key basically is showing what you want the end of the animation to be. You want it, and then you're letting the animator fill in the blanks. And that's pose to pose. Okay, so step 5 is follow through and overlapping action. Um, Basically, this is the opposite of anticipation, or the final step of an animation, where in anticipation we did the Superman pose and how he did his little launch off thing, and then he flew. Um, a better example for follow through and overlapping action animation is Mr. Ballface again. He's going to help us demonstrate is a punch. Basically, the anticipation is the winding back. The main action is the punch, and then the follow through is the punch going through and the guy bending over a little bit, and basically the force of gravity is going to carry his punch and himself past the guy's face, because that's how gravity works. So that's follow through and overlapping action. Okay, so step 6 is slow in and out. A good example of this is actually something that happened to me in real life, where my car's transmission got screwy, and basically I would stop somewhere and then hit the acceleration, and it would slowly get going, and then the transmission would kick in regularly, and it would go the normal speed. Um, Obviously, cars aren't that bad unless you have transmission problems, in which take it to a shop. But in general, things will slowly gain speed, and then they'll go to their regular speed. This also applies for when things are stopping. So when you're in your car and you hit the brakes after going like 50 miles per hour, your car's gonna go, and then it's gonna brake. It's gonna hit that. It's gonna slow down, and then it's gonna brake. Nothing just completely stops motionless. You're gonna have that little reaction time at the start and finish of a movement. So that's slow in and slow out. Step 7 of the 12 principles of animation is arcs. So basically, arcs are the intended path of how an object moves. You can think of it as guidelines for how objects move. A good example would be, tossing a ball and trying to get it in a basketball hoop. You throw the ball. You don't want to throw it at the hoop like that. That'll have an arc of a diagonal line, but generally arcs that usually happen are you throw it and it does that and goes in the hoop. Um, you know, Usually things have arcs in real life unless it's robotic or man-made. But arcs are basically the paths that objects take when they're moving. Step 8 of the 12 principles is secondary action. Usually, whenever an object moves, something else on it is also going to move. A good example of this is my sleeve here. I'll use this, get the Shaolin monk thing going here. So basically, if I'm going to do a punch, you're going to see that sleeve wiggle and move because it's loose, and that's going to be the secondary action for this animation is punch and the sleeve moves, punch and the sleeve moves. There's other examples. I'm too lazy to go over them, but that should pretty much explain what a secondary action is. Step 9 is timing, and timing basically it gives meaning to the animated movement. It's very critical to all animations because if you don't have your timing correct, then it's gonna look really weird. It's gonna look off, and I guess it would also be the easiest to fix because if your timing's off, then you're like, yeah, that's the timing. So some examples of timing would be a heavy person moving and a light person moving. Basically, you're gonna have your heavy person moving. They're gonna move, slow, getting their weight across, and then you're gonna have your light person moving, where it's more just like that. You can also look at the timing of a happy person going, how's it going? And then you got a sad person, going more. And that's timing in a nutshell. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba. Number 10 is exaggeration. Um, Exaggeration is giving like a cartoony look to how things move. Um, Everything in nature is not, you know, boring and normal, and everything has an exaggeration. Like when I talk, I usually move my hands around like a dyslexic person. But yeah, basically that's exaggeration in a nutshell. Is everything is gonna look not like a robot. So different poses would be like a fighter getting ready to fight in Mortal Kombat. Or you got like somebody looking off into the distance and pointing at stuff, but yeah, basically nothing can look like it's fake. Everything has an exaggeration to it in little doses. Basically, you need to gauge how much exaggeration you put in or how little. But yeah, basically, you don't want things to look too normal. That's boring. Don't do it. Don't do it. Okay, so number 11 in the 12 steps plus 1. Um, Number 11 is appeal. Basically, appeal is how you capture your audience, how you make things not look boring and normal. It's kind of related to exaggeration. Um, so another good example is using Mortal Kombat again, specifically Mortal Kombat's 1 through 4, because their poses from that Mortal Kombat were pretty much like that. It wasn't until I'm pretty sure it was the one after Mortal Kombat 4 when every single fighter had their own individual fighting stance. I don't know why I sat down, but okay. So for example, like Shang Tsung, he did snake martial arts, which is kind of like that, and then I don't know. I guess you had Sub Zero. I think his was more like that, and yeah, basically every fighter had their own unique martial arts, and every martial arts has their own pose, and it made it more appealing because every character had their own individuality characteristic to how they were fighting. Whereas in the previous ones, they were all kind of using the same moves, using the same stance. It didn't have a lot of appeal, but now they have a lot of appeal because it's all unique, and that's appeal. Take it or leave it. Here we are, the final step. Step 12 of the 12 principles is solid drawing or design. Basically, I think this means you need to have visual representation of what you really want to do. This could mean, artwork or a storyboard, a solid model that you're using for your animation. Um, you need to have a base to work off of. Usually, it's not good to just you know go. Man, this is hard to explain. Uh, but yeah, basically you want to have a solid idea of where your animation or movement is going. You don't want to just wing it because that's going to take forever and more time is money, and yeah. So basically, plan ahead, have something visual, or at least have a good you know thought process in your mind of how it's going, and go from there. I hope you enjoyed the 12 steps. I didn't. Enjoy. Hope you learned something. Bye bye.